Hey guys, this is Jordan Leroy Hansen with pretty much the weirdest deck tech I had to do in quite a while. One of the decks I wanted to try out is actually try to make a card based around Kahmah's Druidic Vow, which, well, I'll show you the deck because it's very peculiar. Anyway, the card I wanted to base around of is Kahmah's Druidic Vow, which is a X mana, 2 green, legendary sorcery. You spend X and the 2 green mana, and then you can look at the top X cards of your library. You put any number of lands and or legendary permanent cards with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest into your graveyard. This card is probably one of the hardest cards I had to brew around in a while. There's just so many things to make this card tricky to play. One, that thing is, at worst, it's kind of like getting a bunch of lands, which, I mean, ramp is not bad, don't get me wrong, but, and the fact that you can get any land rather than basic lands is really nice. I mean, ramp is good, but really the main thing you want to try to do with this is get the legendary permanent cards. Which, yet again, that's a little bit tricky, because as anybody know who plays Magic for a while, knows the legendary rule. For those who don't, or who are new to the game, the legendary rule essentially states you can't have more than one of the same name of a legendary permanent. So you can't have 2 of the same planeswalkers, 2 of the same legendary creatures, 2 of the same legendary artifacts, 2 of the same legendary lands, vice versa, etc., etc. So, yeah, trying to brew around this deck was hard. And to top it all off, there's a legendary sorcery mechanic, which for those who don't know, means that to even cast this spell at all, you have to have a legendary creature or a planeswalker on the battlefield. And guys, I'm just gonna tell you, this deck took me many iterations. It was obnoxious. But I kinda got to something. As one thing I forgot to mention about the card, as you notice, any cards that don't get fetched by this goes to the graveyard. So then I was kind of thinking about having cards that are both kind of like making a EDH-like deck, but also cards that I don't mind with graveyard synergy shenanigans. So, as you look at the deck here, our 1-drops are essentially ramp, which we need to try to ramp into Kahmah's Druidic Vow. It's your classic Llanowar Elves. I put a few Duresses in there to help with early game removal against this. And also Mott's Amber's just in there because, hey, it's a permanent we can pick up with Druidic Vow. I thought it was an interesting test. Adventurous Impulse help us to get any of our early game creatures, or even late game. This is actually not bad late game as well. Then Elfheim Druid, which you might think is kind of weird because we have the Llanowar Elves, but there is a purpose for this card. So, Elfheim Druid, 0/2, you add a green mana, it's another mana dork, but it has a significant ability of being able to add 2 green mana to use it to spin on kick spells. This becomes significant pretty shortly. Cast down, pretty much early game removal if I need it. Azor's Gateway as a one-of because I still want the dream situation of being able to flip this and then use Kahmah's Druidic Vow on, well, what name your life total here for green mana. The main card that we talked about. And then now we get to one of the main reasons, which, as a 2-of in here, is Growth in the Ashes. It's a free cost sorcery, which has a kicker of 2. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. If the spell was kicked, then you actually put 2 of those lands on the battlefield, untapped, mind you. So, the reason why this is really good is because if you can get this on turn 2 and get a turn 3 land, you can do Grow on the Ashes on turn 3 for its kicker costs, which helps this deck significantly at times. Also, I decided to, on the free drop, put in some early game legendary creatures. One of them that's easily removable, Ruin the Nurturer. Mostly I just put this in here because it synergizes with our elves, which helps us to ramp. Plus it's an early game legendary creature. Capaldar, this may seem weird since I don't really have any other Merfolk synergies, but it's mostly in here because it's kind of a hard legendary creature to remove unless you want to spend more mana. Which, like I said, we need to get a legendary creature that can stick on the battlefield for Carmen's Druidic Vow to work. Also, another one that's nifty for that same purpose is Ronan's the Indomitable. 3 mana, indestructible, Death Touch. It just pretty much sticks on the board unless somebody has an exile spell, which, with white control being a thing, is possible, but it's an option that we can keep. Now we get into the shenanigans, though. So let's say we ramp. Let's say we get ready for Carmen's Druidic Vow. Preferably, I like Druidic Vow when Etz is 4. And you can see that with our 4-drops. Like, we have a couple of them. We have Joseph Vess. Nice legendary to pick up. It's a 4 or 5 minutes. If I can cast in late game, it's nice too. But a 4 or 5 minutes picked up from the Druidic Vow, not bad. Vraska's Condemn's just in there for removal. Helm of the Host, kind of silly, especially if we can synergize it with late game legendary creatures. So, pretty much what happens is, you put on a legendary creature that either has a powerful into the battlefield effect, or just put it on Ronus the Indomitable to have an additional 5/5 Death Touch Indestructible, which can attack now since you have something that is equal to greater power 4 or less. There's just many games where I had synergies like this, where I either get one of my early game legendaries with the Helm, or some of my late game stuff, but we'll get onto that. Karn's in there just because basic draw engine. I was tempted to put 2, but I decided to try at least 1 to keep with the kind of EDH-ish element of this deck to make Carmen's Druidic Vow a lot more effective. Then I put in Fran Temporal Gateway, which is another one that's not bad to pick up, plus if we have any late game and the lands are just kind of off, then I can take it, put it onto the battlefield. On the 5-drops, if we can get to 7, I put in the Scarab God and forgive me, pronunciation of this is a little hard for me. Tatyovra Benthic Druid and the Scarab God. Scarab God, like I said, it helps with the partial graveyard shenanigan synergy I was trying with this deck, just in case we get like a bunch of elves or a bunch of Elfame Druids into the graveyard due to Druidic Vow. Or even we have cards in the opponent's graveyard, I could just spend 4 mana, make them into a 4/4 black zombie token that still do the relatively same purpose or have additional synergies to the deck. Tatyala is kind of the savior of this deck. It's the reason this deck can kind of work pretty well. I'm almost tempted to put 2 of her, even though I'm trying to keep with the EDH rules. The reason why is, with Carmen's Druidic Vow, the fact that you put lands on, if you could do that with her on the battlefield, not only you draw a lot of cards, not only you gain a lot of life, but you get the permanents and the lands on there. These cards synergize ridiculously well. I mean, the times when I get this, it's absurd. Then on the 6-drops, like, this is where we can only do this if it's, like, if we cast this for 8 mana, but still I put in some 6-drops that are powerful. Commit to Memory, I just put in there because if we need to shuffle our graveyard in because the graveyard synergies are not working, it can work, especially helps counter some graveyard synergies that opponents will have. Motani is kind of a given in this deck. The fact that we're going to be putting so many lands on the battlefield, this becomes ridiculously big, ridiculously quick. Madrafa, kind of the same purpose with the Scarab God. It allows us to have synergies with being able to play stuff from our graveyard, which are like artifacts, creatures. It's just a card that I put in there because I thought it has a lot of synergy on our deck. And also, like, let's say if somebody kills Joseph S early, then, oh, Madrafa comes on the battlefield. Hey, I can cast this probably late game for 10 mana and get those tokens. Nifty. Then there's also In Bolas' Clutches, which, surprisingly, you can get from Karmic Druid since it's a legendary enchantment. Oh, and also can be played with Madrafa, which is kind of hilarious. Then there's also Vraska, which also really decent 6-cost Planeswalker. I was almost tempted to splash white to put in like a Teferi and such, but what I learned with when you try to go into the silliest shenanigans, like, let's make this 5-color. I mean, you can see the remnants of that from me having Cascading Cataract in there. Let's go 5 colors and then try to ramp into mono green and then try to get all the Planeswalkers out. Trust me, my previous iterations of trying that deck out did not work. And trust me, I was tempted. I was tempted to have, like, Shale Voice of Plenty. I was tempted to have Teferi. There is some good white legendary creatures and Planeswalkers. Don't get me wrong. But trust me on this, it's best if you do this type of style of deck with Carmen's Druidic Vow. I mean, if you want to try to do the 5-color and try to make it more consistent, have fun, give it a shot. But for me, every time I tried to do 5-color iteration of this deck, it just did not work. So, what I'm going to do now is get through a few matches and just show you how this deck works. But here's the deck tech. I call it Val to Ramp, when really I just should call this something more silly, like Kahmah's EDH deck or some shtick like that. Anyway, let's get on to a few matches, shall we? Okay, so we go to home, we go to play, and, well, let's show you how this deck works. Shall we? Okay. This is a weird hand to keep, but I think I'm going to keep it because I have a turn 1 play, turn 2 removal, and this card is just so good for this deck. You can't underestimate this. Keep this. It might be greedy, but I think this is a greedy hand to keep. Okay, turn 1 that, turn 2 that. Okay, he's going to murder that. Okay, we have a cast out just in case he plays a Scale Lord or some significance, so we're just going to end the turn over here. Okay, let's see what he does. Okay, he's going slow. We'll resolve that. I don't really want to cast down the speaker. I mean, it's annoying, but there's other more peculiar Merfolk in that deck that's more harmful to our game strategy. Plus, we also got the Rass's Contempt, so we're just going to end turn. Get the cast down ready for a really annoying Merfolk. Makes sense, you cast that. He draws his card. We have... Yeah, I'll do that. Upon post reflection, I probably should have waited for the J-Bear to cast the cast down, but I got greedy. Okay, we really need a second swamp. Boy, do we need a second swamp. He's naming Merfolk, obviously. No Kahmah, no Kahmah, no Kahmah. Okay, what are you casting, dude? Oh boy, that is not... Oh boy, this is not going to be an easy match. Not an easy match whatsoever. Okay, we need 1 blue mana for the Bethnic Druid, and then we can go off with this. Which we're probably going to have to, since we can't remove the board easily now. Oh boy, this is going to suck. Yeah, we got a block. We'll block the 5-4. Yeah, I'm gonna take that out of your deck. And yeah, we're gonna concede. Yeah. This deck has kind of weakness to early game. If you you don't draw your right lands, it kind of has weakness to decks like that pretty much build the board presence relatively quick. I'll say though, this deck's decent against control decks and sometimes aggro if you get the right hand, but for the most time, if you ever go against a Merfolk deck, this deck pretty much is dead. Yeah, that's decent. We can get a turn for a Karn, which might be good. It's not perfect, but it would do. Turn, see if he's green-blue Merfolk, or green-red dinosaurs, or green-white cats. Usually when you see this color, this means they're in a specific archetype. Mono green Stompy? Okay, nothing yet. Yeah, I say we get that guy out, so... in the turn. Okay, I'm a little confused, but I will take advantage of the temporarily...
I battle for the forces of good.
What should we do? We could just -2, play the Motsamber, and get like a 2/2 artifact creature. But I think the card draw is a lot more significant here.
Well chosen.
He'll probably just give me the forest. Though there's a possibility he might just give me the Josu Vest since he doesn't see my mana definitely doesn't have the swamps in it. But he decided just to give me the forest anyway. That's fair. Anyway, we're gonna end the turn. That he has a way to remove this, so I think I'm just going to get this back into my hand. Then we'll just do... Actually... this might be the more effective play. And my logic behind this is once we attach this to an Elfane Druid... Okay! I'm grateful I got that out of the way, so we fished out the artifact removal. Huh? Okay.
The choices we make reveal who we are.
He is probably going to give me the swamp, which is great. Then I can play the swamp. Let's see, what the heck does he have? Yeah, we're taking Rask out. Yeah, take it. Okay, so we play that. We activate the ability. Dig in our graveyard a little bit more. We'll take the forts out. We're in the turn. Okay, that's getting a little obnoxious. I mean... Well, let's think about it. On the starting of his turn, each creature's gonna get a +1/+1 counter. He has a second one in hand. Nah.
Good choice.
He's probably gonna give me the druid. He's... misplay. We'll end the turn. So yeah, that happens. Nothing happens. And that was a really short game of Magic. But still haven't shown off the main reason why this deck works. We got some gold out of it. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, we got turn 1 play, turn 2 play. I think, yeah, that's key. Oh boy, this might be mono red aggro targets. Yeah, we take the forest. We end turn. We see what he's got. Mono red aggro. Could also be red blue control. Nah, it's dinosaurs. Yeah, I like that. Because if we keep this to stick, then we can turn 3 France Temple Gateway, and we can get cooking. But if I had to make a guess, he's probably going to try to remove that if he can, with like a magma spray or a lightning strike or an abrade if he has the card. Or even since it looks like he's playing the Enrage synergy, he might be trying to... Nah, he's just playing mono red aggro with dinosaurs. Sure. Okay, this is perfect. Okay, so we do this. We put out France Gateway. We don't want to show up once Amber just yet. Chances are this might just get destroyed, but we'll see. Okay. Ow. I'll throw this out. Let's see. Target creature planeswalker. If I master free, that should not be enough damage. And I can block. Yeah, I think that's the play. We go boop, 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 boop. We put target legendary permanent. We put the Mott's Amber out there. Then we destroy a target creature, which in this case will be the big 4/2. Then we have access to 1, 2, 3 mana, so we can quote-unquote trick that we have some removal of some sort. We don't, but that's fine. I might also just die to a lightning strike, that's a possibility. He does have free cards in hand. If we can keep Vraska the stick this turn, we should be able to get away with a Cormorant's Druidic Vow for... Let's see, presuming that our little guy doesn't die here, bounce for 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Okay. So we'll play the island. We'll plus up 1 since we can at the moment. And then, well, time to show off what the deck does. So let's first count our mana here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can do this for 5, which is actually not bad. So we put this for 5. We use all the mana. And let's see what we get. We get 2 lands. Yay? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Vraska's Content. Yeah, we're gonna have to Vraska's Content the charging Mantra Sword. Though that is tempting. Let's think here. I think we'll go a little... Well, let's count the mana here. That's 6 mana. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... Yeah, I think we can do... Well, actually, no, wait. We can do this. We just do... Well, I've got 1 mana. Add that. Add that. Add that. Put him in the battlefield. Then I want to first cast Vraska's Content first to take out the big threat. There we go. Now we're cooking. Now. Okay. We don't want to block with this guy because he can kill him and draw from him. So, no blocks. Sure, you can hit us for 2. Okay, so we can cast a creature. I think I would rather cast the Planeswalker. Cast one of our druids as well for some really cheap mana. Well, minus this free to destroy. Honestly, I kind of want to destroy that. Tense. And the best part is, even if he kills it, it just comes back with Madrafa. This card is so good. Okay. That's all. Fair. This is a monster in EDH, and this is a monster in this deck. Yeah, we'll take the damage. We don't really want him to kill any of our stuff. We'll probably block with the Elfbane Druid, presuming if we don't get anything. Okay. So yeah, cast Planeswalker again. Vraska's coming on the field. Destroy the Needletooth Raptor, because that is our significant threat in this game. Okay, he'll deal 5 damage to... what? Okay. Creature, cast another one of those, and end the turn, and I think this game is done. Yes! Okay. Let's see, let's check the time real quick. I think I'll end it for now. But yeah, that's kind of the deck. I wish I was able to show a lot more splashier gameplay. I might show a second gameplay video if it shows anything more splashy. But that's how the deck works. Hope you have a lovely day, and enjoy the deck tech.